All right. This is great. Welcome to the show. We get into this without a lot of fanfare, although I did ask Toby before he makes his exit here as the producer of the program to see if he could join me. We didn't have the music to actually play, and we wanted to introduce this gentleman in a proper fashion. So you want to try it, Toby?
I don't know if I know it, Depot. You didn't give me enough prep with this.
I don't think it's too complicated. I mean, it's basically Bavarian oompa music that was dug up somewhere in Mexico. And of course, the intro for NFL films. And we couldn't have a guy that is more the epitome of what the NFL has been all about for, I want to say, the better part of, I'm calculating, it's like 82. He was with the Indianapolis Colts, spent 20 years with the Miami Dolphins.
Baltimore Colts actually in '82.
Baltimore Colts, that's right. Baltimore Colts. And of
I was,
course,
I was part of the move.
years with the Jets, New Orleans Saints, and most recently with the Denver Broncos on through the early portion of this year. And if there ever was a guy, I mean, they use the word guru a lot in sports, and I say, well, okay, you would say that Bill Walsh, he probably was an offensive guru. That was a fair qualification. Mike McDaniel, I don't know. Is he a guru? A lot of people think he's, just a lucky schmo at this point that happened to fall into a job. Adam Gase was like a whisperer. He wasn't really a guru. But if you wanted to define a guru of special teams, it's our guest on today's edition of Conversations. And I will never forget this. So we welcome Mike Westhoff to the show. Michael, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine, Jeff. Thank you. I'm doing great. Just back home, back in Florida, and all the things that go with that. So I'm trying to get organized to back to somewhat of a non-football life, which is somewhat different for me.
You've been in and out a couple of times the last few years. Just when you thought you were out, it's like The Godfather. They pull you back in. Sean Payton kind of talked you into coming back a couple of times. Once with the Saints, you were sitting there enjoying a cush media job with SNY and doing a lot of analysis. ESPN, all of these networks loved you, and he talked you back into coming back with New Orleans as a special teams coach. Then eventually again with the Denver Broncos, who you were with until a little medical incident happened this year. Unfortunately, that worked out okay, but you had to lead the team at the time and decided maybe it was a good time to go in another direction. But the guru thing, I'll never forget this, Mike. And this was a kinder, gentler time in relations between coaches, especially in the NFL and the sports media. And I'm in Mike's office one day, invites me in. He was showing me how he had to do some special things, special considerations to defend Pete Stojanovich's short kickoffs because Pete wasn't exactly booming them through the end zone. So you had him kicking the ball into an angle, into a coffin corner somewhere, and you were showing me how you had everybody defending this. And while I'm in Mike's office, a span of about 15 minutes as he's doing this, I would say no less than six special teams coaches called Mike for advice about what to do this upcoming weekend. And in my estimation, that qualifies the man as a guru. And that was really something. I mean, and you were very generous about that sort of thing. Were you telling these guys the truth? Or were
Yeah,
you
yeah.
looking for
Well,
help?
it would probably depend on who they were. I, I have no problems having favorites, Jeff, as you
Yes.
know. I really don't. Um, there's so many of the guys I like a lot. I have a certain respect for nearly everyone, and then there's a handful that I'm not too fond of. That I've always had that response. So I
Yeah.
probably wasn't giving them too much, but I always like interaction. I enjoyed it. I think I learned a lot from others, and I wasn't afraid to share it. And I'm still not actually even this year to some degrees. I had an interesting team contact me. I can't say who they were, but they contacted me while I was still at Denver before I had the incident, the medical, a little bit of a scare. Um, and the guy was one of their coaches, wasn't their head coach, and he contacted me and he said, "Mike, is this your last year at Denver?" And I said, "Yes, I've said I would come back for one more year." And he said, "Well, how about?" He said, "I want to go to our head coach and see if I can get him to get you to come back here." He said, "Now, if you heard the team, you might think this was, and would give it some validity.
Yes.
I can't." He said, "If you can get us in the top five, we'll win the Super Bowl." I said, "I think you're right." because part of your team stinks. Hate to tell you, but you're not very good. I said, I could get you in the top five. I said, but I won't do it. I said, but I'll promise you, I got a guy that I know that, and I'll help him do that. That's it. Then I let it go. I let it go. And believe it or not, that guy actually was talked to, and it didn't quite work out. But so yeah, those things are fun for me. Can I coach anymore? No, that's enough. That's beyond me. Um, I had a little bit of an incident during a meeting where I had all of a sudden a kind of a cloud came over my vision, and I really couldn't see out of my right eye, and that was scary. It was frightening to me. It dissipated after about, I'm going to say 8 to 10 minutes. I talked to doctors. They ran a million tests, couldn't find anything. And, all the eye tests, those things. But
Right.
then again, it happened on a plane. Now, this time, not as severe. I'd say about a quarter of what I had previously experienced. But that set in motion a series of, let's figure this out. And the doctors were just great. They put me through every test. I did an MRI, complete head and brain, and they actually found a little bit of material in there, which I was happy. The brain, because there was some of there. There were some of the players were probably thinking there wasn't much there, but there was a little bit in there. So, but it showed that I had a little kind of, they referred to it as it's a long Latin name. I'll just use the nickname that they used, a spot in a blood vessel. And what can happen as things travel through our bloodstream, it could hit that particular area like a little bump in the road. That was the analogy they used, and could cause a nerve to spasm and my sight to be compromised.
Right.
They said that's not a big deal. It's not usually an issue, but there's a but, and that's the but that I didn't like. They said if this were a larger type piece of material and it lodged for a short time, you could lose the sight in that eye. Now that frightened the hell out of me. That
Yeah.
scared me. And
And
then
some
when
of
I
those.
found out from several other doctors, my buddies in New York and some of those people, they said, Mike, it's real. Will it happen? Probably not. Could it happen? Sure. And they said, stress is the biggest exacerbator of this whole thing. And they said, so, maybe someone is giving you a little bit of a tap on the shoulder and saying, hey, enough's enough. And so that's how I looked at it. I feel very good. I've had no issues, and I don't. But sometimes, Jeff, I'm 77 years old, so I'm not some young kid. I feel pretty good. I'm in good shape,
You look
but
great.
something maybe said it's time to stop. So I am going to do that now. Can I help somebody? Oh yeah, come on! I love doing that. I love talking and helping people, and I will do that. And I talked a couple guys who called me and asked me if I would come into their training camp, maybe talk to their players at night about the value of what it's really like, the careers that it's made, and give them. Yeah, and I'd be more than happy to do that. That would be fun for me. That would be fun. So that's kind of where my life is moving at this point in time.
You've certainly done it all, and for a long period of time. I didn't realize how nomadic your journey was, into coaching and getting
Yeah,
started. Before, I mean, I just remember you being with the Dolphins. I guess you got there in what, 1986, and
yeah, yeah.
I was already here in town for a few years, and you were just a staple of the Dolphin coaching staff through Shula and Jimmy Johnson, and I guess your last year was probably what, with Dave Wanstead
Right.
when he came in. So I mean, a long, long span there, and always, one of those guys that you thought, well, we certainly don't have a problem with special teams. I remember though talking to you a couple of years ago when they started tinkering with the rules on kickoffs and things like that, and it was just after the time where people steadily acknowledged that special teams play actually made up a third of what was important to take care of in a football game: offense, defense, and special teams. What was equated to equal status with with offense and defense in that regard. And I remember you saying when they started tinkering with the kickoff rules, especially, that maybe they were weaning special teams play and its importance out of the game, but when you look at what happened this season, I don't know that I would agree that that's the case. I mean, you don't have as many kickoff returns, but and it's a strange thing to see the ball come out to the 30. But it did seem like, especially even with the Kansas City Chiefs, many of their games were decided on a special teams play right there at the end.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, I was at the back end of one of them. I was, and I've
Yeah.
seen it happen to other teams the same way. Uh,
Yes.
anyway, no, when I first started in 1982 with the Baltimore Colts, I went in kind of a, very unauspiciously, to say the least. Um, I was a tight ends coach. I helped with the offensive line. I was actually a strength coach. I was trying to get somebody hired, but I filled it for a couple of years until we filled that void. And then I took over special teams because really they were just not being done very well, and I took it over. The one, and I knew nothing about it. I knew zero. I had never coached it in my college career. And then all of a sudden, here I am in the middle of it. Well, I learned two things very quickly. One, there was almost zero innovation. Everybody did the same thing. But to go in hand with that, there was no regulation. You could try anything. A lot of the rules that we have and we become very familiar with were non-existent in 1982. So I decided I'm going to try everything, and I kind of really got into it. Now, being a little bit cocky that I am, and I don't think I'm arrogant, but I can be a little cocky. I kind of think like some of it, I felt like I invented a lot of it, but I took chances. And then I went with Coach Shula. And Don Shula he was a brilliant, brilliant coach. From being first he was a hard nose. He could be tough as nails, but he was a gentleman and he did things the right way. He didn't cheat. He believed in doing it firm, hard, and fast. But Don knew the game. He knew it. And I used to love to sit down. Sometimes it was the debate, and he would end it very quickly. I'd be trying to show him something I was doing on the board, and he'd say, "Yeah, you can work on that after practice." I might as well say working on the moon, Mike. That's not going to happen. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot and a lot from him, and I kept expanding it. And every time I would see somebody else doing something, and I would say I really like that. I'm going to take it and tinker it a little bit. Now I've really got something going. And so I think I was a major part of that part of the game moving to where it had never been before. And I was a contributor. I believe I was a major contributor, but I was a contributor, not by myself, because there were some others that did it very well also. But we kind of took it, and I think I headlined that take and took the kicking game and special teams to an area where it hadn't been. All of a sudden, we were pretty good and helped make a difference in the game. And that was my goal, to get, and I like doing it by getting the guys that maybe no one really expected. Like I mean, for sure. I mean, I'm the only coach, and there were scouts, don't get me wrong, of course, but I'm the only coach who went out to Texas Tech to work out Zach Thomas. We took him in the fifth round. Now, I know Jimmy was the head coach, and Jimmy certainly deserves the credit, but I feel like I drafted him. I mean, you ask Zach, he'll tell you. I took the guy because I loved him.
He
But
still looks like he's great.
he became such a good special teams player.
Yeah.
Well, that lasted. As soon as Jimmy said, "Well, wait a minute, this guy's going to be our linebacker." Well, he's in the Hall of Fame. I went that same scouting trip. I went down to Texas to Rice and worked out Larry Izzo. When I went in the building that day, I measured him 5'9.5", and he weighed 213 pounds. He was a linebacker. The Canadian League said no, and the arena ball walked out. But I didn't, because I knew he could do what I wanted him to do. Well, he has 5 Super Bowl rings. He was 3 Pro Bowls. He played 13 years, and and he's still coaching. He was coaching at Washington. He's done a great job. So I love taking those kind of guys and just helping them develop and seeing them come along, change their lives. Best thing ever for me. Best thing ever. And I just kept doing it and kept doing it. And went up to New York. Man, I've got an interesting number at New York that I'll put up against anybody that's ever done this. I had 9 different guys that led the National Football League in returns.
Wow.
I didn't have Devin Hester, but I had 9 that led the league. When you lead the league, to me, I was telling a guy that I was talking to not too long ago about an interview. And he was saying, "Coach, when do I have to do this interview?" I said, "Your numbers are your interview. That's your interview." I said, "What you've done, what you've been able to do, where you've ranked, how you've done it, and whatever role you've been in, that's what counts. I said, that's what counts in this business. And so I don't know. I took something that I felt no one really, and I was in the right place at the right time, and bam, it exploded, and and I had a ball with it. I absolutely loved it.
I thought you might have sent that play to Izzo in the playoff game against the Eagles, where he fakes the punt and
They
has
ran
a
a fake
runner
punt.
throw a pass. Yeah,
That was a good play. It was a good play. They ran it. Yeah, no, I know. I just sent
that
it to
that,
him.
that reeked of, or just had Mike Westhoff written all over it.
I love talking to him. I talked to him just the other day. He's really a good guy, and he's done a great job and had a great career, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to take those kinds of guys and turn them into football players that help win games. That's the key. That's what it's all about.
I remember you telling me too when you were with the Dolphins, and obviously were in a league long after that with the other teams you were affiliated with. But I remember you telling me that at special teams guys, and I would imagine this holds true even more so today. You selected guys for special teams, but they had to be able to play a position.
Yes,
They couldn't be like completely dysfunctional in any other aspect,
absolutely.
every other aspect of the game.
No, I completely agree with that. I wanted, they all had to have a role. I remember a guy like Larry Izzo, who's not exactly a quintessential linebacker.
No,
I pushed him so hard that how he practiced and how he would do things so that he would have a role. And when it came time to help on defense, he was going to be a viable part. And I was able to do that. And then take some guys that maybe were nearly not normally, you didn't think of them. I used to always love to get a couple defensive linemen and put them in special teams roles. I put them in specific areas where I knew they could dominate. And they had never been thought of doing that before. I loved it. I put them in on trying to rush a punt, or put them in on the old fashioned wedge in a kickoff return. I used to love when they had the 2-1 rule where I put those two big guys together, and we were really good. We were very, very physical and did a lot of good things with it. And so I love being able to experiment with that. Take a guy and only ask him to do one or two things. Like I remember at Miami for a while. We lined up. I used to line up on a punt return. I had Jason Taylor on one side and Trace Armstrong on the other, rushing the punter. Taking punters back there having a heart attack. Those two guys, they were really good. And so what did it end up as a result in? It ended up in a result of not being able to punt to the side, have to put the ball in the middle of the field. Well, OJ McDuffie leads the league. I had two guys. Jeff Ogden and his name will come to me in a minute. That weren't big names, but that both finished second in the National Football League in punt returns.
Jeff Ogden saved the season from being unvictorious.
Things like that because we were able to get a Jason Taylor and a
Yes.
Trace Armstrong to play a couple. What are they playing? 5 plays a game, 6 plays. But those 6 plays, you better look out. You better look out because we're really coming. And it made such a difference. And then when they saw that function, they never, it wasn't like they were giving me a hard time. I'm using them I put them in for 4 or 5 plays. But oh my goodness gracious, some poor wing, was all of a sudden trying to block Jason Taylor. Yeah, well, good luck, buddy. A first Pro Bowl tackle can't block him. How are you going to do it? So that to me was what I loved. I loved being having that role. I loved it.
And as you look back on the different things that you were able to accomplish with that, how much of a psychiatrist did you have to be when it came to the actual kicker, especially the place kicker? And you think of kickers in the same category as goaltenders, maybe knuckleballers. They're going to be a little bit offbeat. And we've seen a lot of different characters. Sometimes we don't know anything about them except that they went out there and shanked their last one. But how much of a psychiatrist and psychologist did you have to be with these guys? Even some that were the best in the game, because everybody experiences slumps from time to time, no matter how
All
good.
the all the hundreds of questions that I've been asked in my career, and no one ever brought that one up. That's pretty
Yeah, well, I mean, these guys are freaks, aren't they? To a
pretty
certain
cool.
degree.
No one brought up what you just brought up.
Yeah.
I have my master's degree in education and psychology. So I actually do use it. I believe in it.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer. If I had to pick someone who I have probably based my psychological profile after was a psychologist named Haim Janot. He was Israeli, and he dealt with children. And he believed that if you treated children repeatedly in a manner to which you see them becoming, the chances of that happening are much, much improved on rather than trying to do it the opposite way. And so I tried to take kickers and without getting too much into their psyche
Yeah.
and let them know of how to improve who they were, their technique, get their technique, eliminate the moving parts. Make their golf swing like Tiger Woods, a precise golf swing, not all over the place, like the rest of us are. And I said, and so I really concentrated on that and to try to eliminate. There was a punter we had one time. If he had been if he had been a weatherman, the whole country would have just jumped and left. They would have all he did was worry about. They were so windy. I'm thinking, what wind? Where's the wind? So what we did, I came up with a way that we decided where he would punt the ball. And we did it off what we saw. We would call it a check. I'd go in with a red check, that we're going to punt it right unless, well, I just made it up half the time what we wanted to do. I'd have guys signaling. He ended up with the best net he ever had in his career, and he ended up changing things. So I tried to help them be consistent and believe in who they were. Because if they weren't good enough, trust me, I wouldn't have had them there in the first place. They wouldn't have been there. I'd have had somebody else. Because I had guys that were pretty doggone good.
Yes.
And so it was a matter for me to just try to help them be consistent and believe in themselves. And then practice it that way. I'm very, very tough in practice. Very tough. I had Tom Morstead one year. He was a great punter. And when I was with the Saints, and he ended up that year. We had the second highest gross. We led the league in that. We gave up. I forget. We were second or third in punts inside the 10, and we gave up an average of 2 yards per punt return. I think it's the best in NFL history. And we ran. He was tremendous. He was punting out there in practice one day, and he came off the field. And he walked past me. I can't swear. Trust me, I would if I could.
No, you're more than welcome to. We all saw the Hard Knocks. We were actually shocked.
My effing 6-year-old can punt better than that. He was so mad at me. He was furious again. I walked away. So he came up later and he said, "I wanted to kill you." He said, "But you were right." He said, "You were right." He said, "I can't. If I practice like that, that's who I'll be." And so I could be very tough. Now I'd rather be very complimentary, and that's what people don't sometimes get because I can be tough. But I'd much rather say, "That's what I'm looking for." That guy, you punt like that guy, you'll lead the league. Just bring that guy Sunday. Don't leave him at home. Bring him with you, please. And so those are kind of things that I think sometimes you have to do. And I just I wanted them to practice. I didn't want Sunday to be a surprise. I wanted Sunday to be what they were on Wednesday. They were consistent. They did what you're supposed to do. They hit the ball the way I know they can. And the next thing you know, you've got Reggie Roby being Reggie Roby. And that's all I ever wanted him to be. The kid in Iowa used to learn how to punt when he punted the ball over his house. And he broke some windows until he didn't learn how. That's how he did it. And I love that kind of guy. And so, all of a sudden that guy leads the league. And that was my goal every single week.
As you looked at some of these kickers going out on the field, though, and you mentioned that the stress level obviously is very high when you're on the sidelines. How much pain did you feel when a guy whiffed on a kick or missed one, a wide left, wide right, when games were on the line, much like they were this year? I mean, maybe you could just take us through that play when you have
kickers,
Kansas City beat.
I had very good luck with kickers. I really did. We had Fuad Revez down in Miami when I first went there. We drafted Pete Stoyanovich and had Lindo Mari. I got Len. I mean, come on, those guys are good. I went up to the Jets. I had a handful of good, solid guys that did well, and Will Lutz out at the Saints, and then with Denver, I wanted a kicker. My goal with a kicker was that when he missed, I wanted to be surprised. Because if I wasn't surprised, then that's not the guy I wanted. Alindo Mari, he would miss. I'm like, what the hell happened? Well, what happened there?
Yeah.
He's not going to miss. That's just the way I saw it. I wanted to, and so you have to work to get that guy. But when you get him, then you know that you can win with that kind of guy. I just said I've had very, very good kickers, and I've done nothing more than pick that kind of guy and make sure that he practiced to his level of ability. Sometimes I would have, they'd be warming up, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd say, how you feel? You about ready? And he'd say, yeah. I said, well, hit the right goalpost. No, I said, hit the goalpost right now. Because if you don't hit it, I'm not leaving. I'd make him do it. Sometimes I'd bet him. I said, can you hit the goalpost? I said, I'll give you 2-1, $10. I did anything to make it different. One time I said, I should tell a holder sometimes, nobody else. I said, look, do me a favor today. I want every hole to be horseshit. I said, not just a joke, but just a little bit off.
Yeah.
Because I want him nervous. I want him giving you hell. All of a sudden, that would happen. He said, okay, give me a hold one time. I said, just make the kick. Don't worry about the hold. Make it. I said, here's going to lay it down flat. You can still make it if you do it right. Things like that. Then later on, they'd find out. They'd know I got them, But I used to love to challenge them a little bit. But at the end, I wanted them to believe in themselves. When they went out, they knew they could do it. And none of us were surprised. We all believed they could make it. You get that guy, to me, that's the secret. Because they're all good. They're all good. And now with the way they are today, with bigger, stronger, better athletes, more powerful, and they've developed great technique, very consistent. And then when you take that and you combine it with several things that have changed, one, you've got a legal, but very friendly ball. All right, before the game, equipment guys bring in six. The officials open up. I think they have 4 or 6 balls that they take out. The equipment guys overinflate the ball, then they buff it up, then they give it back to the official who marks it with his particular way and puts it at the 13 pounds per square inch. He puts it at the right way for the kicking ball. Now quarterbacks, they bring all their balls in that they want, and they just check the pounds per square inch. Now it stays like that until maybe Tom Brady decides that he wants a little air out of the ball, and they take a little bit out maybe. Which really, tell you the truth, I believe he did it. But nonetheless, if he had done it the right way and approached it, nobody would have cared because it's only a tiny little bit. And it's just, but when you do it that way, you make a mistake. But anyway, so you've got a very friendly ball. So the ball will kind of compress and explode. It's legal. It's not illegal, but it's good. All right. Now you've changed the rules with the long snapper, so you can't line anybody up on them anymore. You've got a halo around them. So long snappers went from great big guys like Jeff Dellenbach to guys that look like me. Who look like a high school phys ed teacher. But the snap is perfect. Perfect. Every single time. Now, everybody's learned how to hold. We developed a technique where you bring the inside elbow back to the knee and it puts the ball right on the spot perfect. All right, so you've got a perfect snap, a perfect hold. Okay? A friendly ball and a restricted rush. Remember, you used to get behind and push guys. You remember how we used to do that?
Sure.
I had Jeff Cross and those guys. We'd run people right over and block the kick. It was so easy. I loved it. Well, that's all changed. So you've got a restricted rush, a perfect snap, a perfect hold, and a friendly ball. Well, what the hell do you think's going to happen? They're going to make the kick.
Yeah.
So, that's why the percentages are so good today. I believe it won't be long. You'll see a 70-yard field goal take place in National Football League. It's coming.
It seems like they put helium in the ball at this point because remember, I mean, they would be like, "Oh, look at that! He's going to go for it. It's 51 yards," and everybody, be biting their nails, thinking there's no way. Now, if a guy misses a 55-yard kick, you're going, "Hey, what a schmuck! You're a loser. Go home." So that has definitely evolved, and the percentages are remarkable.
It is. It is.
Um,
I look at it. If you have with reasonable field goals under 50, if I don't have a guy that's in the 90%, I don't want him. He's got to be able to do that.
And you see
that's part of the game. Part of the game, because defenses have really learned how to play that red zone, and most coaches, offensive coaches, don't have the patience to run the ball on first and second down in the red zone. Then they because the offensive guys, they'd rather complete a pass than go to heaven.
Are
That's
you a fan of bypassing field goals, situations, 4th and 3 from the 17 or whatever? That's
depends
become
on the game.
commonplace.
I like getting points on the board, and I think there's times when you really have to be smart and get it. Now, it also depends on who you are and what your your short yardage type offense is like. I mean, if when you've got Kelsey that was playing for the Eagles and you were running that tush push thing with
Yes.
the back, nobody could stop the way those guys did it. They're still really good at it. I think they're about I'm going to guess about 80% right now. I might want to go for it a lot of times on fourth down. I think there's something to be said for that. But a lot depends on your football team, your philosophy, and but when you get a kicker in that spot, you need those points. You got to have a guy that can do it.
Yeah. It seems like coaches abdicate the possibility of going for what would be a routine 34-yard field goal. And later in a ball game, as you look at the dynamics on the scoreboard, everybody's, oh, well, if they'd gotten that field goal, they would be in a position. They wouldn't
Well,
be in such bad shape.
there's a lot to that, and a lot depends. Some guys are with their philosophy. They're very good at it. They're very aggressive, and they put that in their plan, and they've taken that, and it becomes like they did a lot of that at Detroit. Philadelphia did that very well recently. The guy that's at Washington, I can't get his name on. I used to
Quinn?
work with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny Quinn. He's very good at that, and he does an excellent job with it. But that's part of their thing. They practice it. It's a philosophy, and so I think it just depends on the kind of football team you have, and what you've got, and how you're gonna handle it. And the game's changed in some ways because in some ways, with some of those guys, like with that Philadelphia, the way they were running that thing, they're still pretty good at it. It becomes a 4-down game. It's not 3 downs. It's 4.
Sure.
So they can take it and cut it into little chunks. Because all of a sudden now I need 2.5 a play. I don't need 3.5. I need that kind of thing. And you change the philosophy of the game. So
All right, we're watching the Chiefs all year long, and I don't know how obviously a
you
great
give me a headache. They're
to
good. They're
yeah,
good. They're
to
good.
be able to sustain what they've done in the
Yeah.
era of the salary cap and the wild rampant free agency, where you have to let guys go that you would just covet to no end, except you can't pay everybody or whatever, unless
Right.
you're the Miami Dolphins somehow, and you just start giving out cash and wondering what the hell went wrong. But as you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you had them by the jugular. Every game that I'm watching them this year, Mike, I'm thinking this is the week they're going to lose. Now they have this record going where in 17 straight one-score games decided by one score, they've won them all. They're 17-0 in this spot. You have them. You're ready to go in. I mean, maybe you could take us a little bit through that moment. It might be one you would desperately want to forget, but
It's not my favorite.
you're trying your kicker out there. Everybody knows you're going to beat the Chiefs.
Here's the thing. We had a couple things happen in the game. First of all, let's look at Kansas City for a minute. I was playing them this year,
Yeah.
in the last couple of years. Great football coach in Andy Reid, really a good one, and does a lot of things well. Manages the team well, does understand salary cap, but he knows how. And I'm not afraid to experiment. Always got some kind of little wrinkle play. He does a heck of a job of. Tough to ever bet against Mahomes. The guy's one of the greatest football players who's ever been. And he's a little bigger than I thought he was on the field. I always, he's taller than me. I'm 6'1", about 6'3". I'd say he weighs 225 or 230. He's a nice size guy, and he's so athletic. And then they just figure out a way, so they're good. All right, our game, we're playing a close game. Their offense does not have as many weapons as they've had in the past. They just don't. Now, as the season's gone on, they've brought some things along, and I think they're a little bit better now than they were when we played them maybe the 5th or 6th game of the year. They're a little better on offense. Their defense is pretty good. They're not great, but they're pretty good. So we're playing a solid game. Now, not a great, but it's a close game. We were giving them a good fight. I think I made a good move, which helped us at the end of the game. Their kicker's he doesn't just kill it. He can hit it. If the wind is with him, he'll get a touchback. But, I've got a Pro Bowl returner in Marvin Mims. So he went out to kick it, and I flipped at the last second. I had Mims and my other guy flip sides. And this guy at the last second tried to kick it away from Marvin, and he kicked it out of bounds.
Wow.
Well, we got the ball at the 40-yard line. Now, I mean, our offense did a pretty good job, but come on now, we're not, it's not Dan Marino and those guys. I mean, they're pretty good. Knicks did a nice job, but from the 40, it took us down to have a position. Now, we had a guy get banged up, and we kind of had flipped around. I'm not gonna push the blame on somebody else because it's my responsibility overall. But I split it up with another guy, and I was kind of coaching the defense, and he had the offense. But our protection had been great because we kicked a million field goals, and we got a guy hurt, and we put a new guy in there at the end position. I thought he'd be okay. I didn't make the move. I thought, well, he'll be okay. He'll fine. What do you think? And he's fine. Well, we didn't practice at all in pads that whole week. Though I really didn't have a good feel. Now, during the game, I saw him get knocked back. Now I'm in a panic mode. I'm coaching him on the sideline.
Right.
To get wider, to get lower. I'm doing everything I can. And then we got right down in there, and Sean went to the kicker, which sometimes it irritates me, and wanted to know what hash he wanted it on. I would have kept the ball in the middle of the field because it's like a PAT, and the rush would have been balanced. We put it on the right hash. They put their two best guys over my weakest guy, and they got us.
Wow.
They did the same exact thing against Houston in the playoffs and had the same result. Same exact two guys. And I'm screaming, no, leave it in the middle of the field. And so sometimes, I just want to, I'd like to punch somebody, but I have to shut up and just don't say
Little
anything.
Buddy Ryan out there.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And certainly, I'm certainly part of the blame too, though. But I think under other circumstances, we'd have made that kick.
What did that make you feel about? I mean, all year long, we're thinking the Chiefs are vulnerable. You had them by the jugular. You're sitting there.
They're vulnerable, but they're very good. They're still, and I think they've gotten even better as I see it. I'm kind of going to root for Philadelphia. I kind of like that football team. I'm a big fan of Saquon. I really like him a lot.
What do you make of their chances? Because I
think their defense is good. I think it'll be a good game. But if I had to bet, which I do not, I don't do that.
Okay.
I hate to bet against Mahomes. I just somehow that guy is really something special.
Hey, we were talking about it's like the guy at the track that comes up and he leaves out the leading jockey. In this case, Iran Ortiz. How can I leave out Ortiz? I was on a guy's radio show earlier this afternoon, and he loves Mahomes and the Chiefs. He's got all his money bet before the season started. As soon as the line came out after last year's Super Bowl, he jumped on the Chiefs again to win it all. And I actually thought that they were going to be challenged this year. They kind of lucked out when they got Worthy in the draft. That seemed like a real steal at that position for them, especially since people have been looking at them and saying they were badly depleted at the wide receiver position. But looks to me like they have plenty of guys that can catch the ball and make plays. And this is an interesting one because you're an old school guy, and yet you have described very eloquently how you've had to make various adaptations during your time coaching special teams. So Vic Fangio, I don't know how well you know. Well, you might know.
I don't know him real well, but I know who he is and what he's done.
Okay.
Very good job.
He comes to the Dolphins the season prior to this one, 2023. And all of the conversation was, and you probably caught some of this, oh, my God, well, that was the best acquisition ever by the Dolphins in the offseason. They got Fangio. This is what they needed. So I guess, he wasn't in total synchronization there with the ideas of Mike McDaniel or the way the team was performing for him or type of guy that he was coaching. He exits after 1 year. Defense wasn't bad. They weren't horrible this year, but Philadelphia, he makes this remarkable change. And yet, and I don't know if you agree with this point, guy that I have on some of my shows has been talking about this a lot. Fangio doesn't do much in terms of change. He plays his basic. He doesn't blitz a lot. I mean, sometimes when he was coaching the Dolphins, we had to, you're screaming at the television, said, blitz already, throw a blitz at him. And it seems like the defense that he likes to play, as effective as they've been, is almost ideally suited to what Mahomes is doing now, which is that guy that almost Brady-esque. He seems to pick teams apart with zones in the middle of the field more so than throwing the ball over the top. So do you believe that Fangio will be able to just do what he did to get to the dance and be effective against Mahomes, or does he have to make some kind of a change to accommodate the skills of his game?
I think he's got to mix it up a little bit more, or Mahomes will pick him apart inside. Mahomes he'll break that. You better keep him in the pocket If he gets outside of the pocket, he'll just kill you. And then you think you've got him stopped, and he runs for a first down. Then he looks like he's going to run. He pulls up and he hits some dinky pass.
Right.
I believe you've got to mix it up. I think if you're going to do anything, if I'm going to say one thing I want to do, I'm going to stop Kelsey. I don't care. Let the rest of them beat me, but he's not going to beat me. That would be my goal with somebody like that. I want to always beat the best player. And I mean, that guy he'll kill you. The last game, it looked like he caught every pass. You
Yes.
can't do that. So I think they've got to do a good job with that. Um, I think you'll probably see a little bit more mixture. I think you'll see a little mixture more zone and man to man. I believe he'll do that. If he doesn't, I think he'll lose. I think he'll lose. They'll get him. So we'll see how it's going to work. I think he can do it because I think that's a good football team. They're good against the run. I think they'll stop. I think they'll stop Kansas City's run. And it's a matter of, okay, can you stop these other guys? I don't know if you can. I don't believe you can by playing a space field where you've got holes all over the place because Mahomes will find them. He'll
Yeah.
find them.
Take us inside the meeting rooms there, and you've been in these situations in the postseason with a variety of teams, including a Super Bowl there. What with the Saints? Now, what are the discussions like? Let's say you're in the Philadelphia meeting room right now. Sirianni gets up there, and of course you probably, I mean, made the locker room and the meeting room speech the most famous it ever was when you were on the Hard Knocks with the Jets. And I mean, you literally you distanced that time was a distant consideration because everybody was thinking, wait a minute, who's this guy? And it was you, Mike Westhoff, and you kind of combined little Newt Rockney and Joe Pesci when you were delivering these messages. But what kind of tone do you think that they'll be setting? You would think the Chiefs, having been there 2 years in a row, would be the epitome of cool, and you would think the Eagles. I don't know. I mean, would you be inclined to think they need to be fired up a little bit? How do
Don't,
these?
don't forget now you've got several types of meetings going on
Yeah,
because you've got your coaching guys that are getting together and they're planning. Okay, how do we beat these guys? What do we have to do? Who do we have to stop? And what's so they come up with a plan, a game plan to organize it, to formations and to take advantage of things and looking at other teams. You're watching other film and they all of a sudden you look down and say, hey, Houston did a pretty nice job against these guys, da 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 da. And you start to combine that philosophy and you get that picture. So you put that together. Then you get your guys together, your players. You start to put it in, little by little. On defense or offense, you got your base run first, then your nickel packages, then your short yardage goal line packages. Each day you present something. Then you're trying to present a theme maybe. Okay, which maybe is a Saturday night. That when you got me, some of those things that I did, that was some of that stuff on Hard Knocks. They were kind of theme speeches that I would give to the players.
that
And
was great.
some of them motivational, but what I tried to do was pick where we were, what I believed we needed, and a methodology to get there by giving them a little bit of a story, something, and I had a million, because I read a lot, and I had a whole computer I keep track. Everybody thinks I just make it up, but I don't. I study it, and then I wanted to be able to give them something we had to do, maybe to overcome. And I use different examples, to take responsibility of a team yourself. Okay, because so many times in the football's the sport more than any. Because afterwards, you go around the locker room, I'd go around and say, hey, how'd you do? What do you think? I played pretty good, Mike. I had that one penalty. Okay, how'd you do, Bill? Oh, I think I had a pretty good game. I missed that one tackle. And then, well, we got beat by 20 points. So somebody must have done something. It wasn't too good. So I used to always want to say, I'd get a point and say, okay, this is the day. When we have to pull ourselves, everybody's got to kind of get the bootstraps and pull yourselves up. So what do we do? So I found one. I like to do crazy adventure things. I'll give you one. I'll give you one. I'll give you one. Real
You
quick.
had some good old time war references too. I mean,
I say, yeah, I do that. Anyway, I'd say
wars. You would mention a lot of
I
different
like
things.
to go. I give one. I say, I like adventuresome sports, and I learned how after I had so many surgeries, I couldn't do everything, so I went to do a few different things. So I like to go whitewater rafting. Actually, right now, even at my age, 77, I go kayaking down the Snake River through 18 miles of rapids in the summer. I can do that. I can still
Amazing.
do it. And where
Yep.
I went snowmobiling last week all over in Jackson, Wyoming. I have my snow. I went up over 60, so I can still do things. I'm not afraid. Anyway, I'm on a raft. I'm getting a raft, and this guy's. There's six of us in the raft going down the Snake River, which at the time we went in the spring was pretty serious. And he said, "Look, here's the stuff about it." He said, "If someone falls in, where there's a procedure how where everybody is going to pull together to help get that person. I'll get a line to them. We're going to hang on, da da da." And he's going through the whole thing, how we're all going to chip in. He said, "But there's kind of a rule of the river." He said, "If you fall in, you have to become an active participant in your own rescue. In other words, get your own ass out of the water. Don't be just floating down yelling help, help, and end up in Mexico."
Yeah.
I said, that's what the National Football League can be about.
Wow.
All of a sudden, you be the guy that's going to make the tackle. You say, I don't know what the rest of you 10 guys are going to do, but I'm making a play right now. I'm putting it on the line, and I'm going to do it. Now, God bless you if 4 of you are with me helping me, but I'm going to do it. So I always tried to have a point, and it was 100 different ones of what I felt we had to have, and I would take them to that point with various stories, anecdotes, quotes. I used to love doing that. I read everything that Pat Riley used to write and famous guys, and I enjoyed that kind of thing. And it was exciting, to make it a little. Sometimes it was funny, sometimes it could be sad. I could be emotional. I'm not afraid. I think I just wanted to at times, and it wasn't not very long. I was never very long with it. I would always be kind of short and make the point and then move on. And then get guys, I used to like to challenge them. I'd look at us and said, "Jeff, what do you have to do this week? What's your what's your biggest thing?" No, no, Jeff, don't do that. You do that, I'm calling your mother. Tell her to get your favorite meal. I'm sending you home tomorrow. Don't do that. But
Yeah.
anyway, those are kind of things. I love that. I love that challenge and that interaction.
I coaching with some terrific guys. I mean, we mentioned Don Shula, a long time, probably what about 14 years or
Yeah,
so.
50,
Don
50
Shula.
hours for a long time.
Jimmy came along, of
Yeah,
course, very accomplished when he
yeah,
joined the Dolphins, having won Super Bowls and set up Barry Switzer to win a Super Bowl for God's
right.
sake. The
Yes, he
Cowboys.
did. He could have kept winning them with that outfit.
Yeah, and maybe that would have perpetuated itself. We'll never know, but it hasn't gone well since he left there. So you had to think that he was very influential.
Yeah, he did a great.
Then you move on and end up coaching with Rex. What was that experience like for you,
I
coaching?
enjoyed Rex. Um, Rex came in as a defensive coordinator, for Baltimore, and they had a great defense. I mean, they were really good, and Rex did a really nice job with them. And he had a good philosophy. He understood. He had a very distinct philosophy of what he believed you had to have. A lot of it was a time thing. Where you want to be able to run the ball at a certain number of times percent, throw the ball at a certain. He had a philosophy of the type of team he wanted to have. He believed in that. Of course, he was a defensive guy, so he was going to base that around a really good defense. And he was great to me. He let me have the practice time and let me able to do pretty much whatever I wanted. And then we all kind of pulled it together. I enjoyed working for Rex. Rex was much more disciplined than what people thought because he would kind of blow off and how he gets a little crazy and
Yeah.
he'd get going with that. But that's not him at all. Our practice, nobody was ever late. Everybody was on time. We had great guys. And then Rex did a nice job. We we had just enough cap money that we could go out and rent some pretty doggone good players. We wanted to improve our running game. So we brought in LaDainian Tomlinson. Well, he's in the Hall of Fame. We wanted to be able to run that ball, so we wanted an offensive lineman. Well, we got Alan Faneca. Well, guess what? He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We wanted to help our pass rush a little bit. Well, brought in Jason Taylor. Well, guess what? He's in the Hall of Fame. So all
Nice.
of a sudden, we bring these kind of guys, a couple of them, into our locker room. They were great guys. They practiced hard. They were good teammates, and they were great football players. Now, were they going to last 100 years? No, they were toward the end. But to rent them for that short time, it was a smart thing to do. Now, on defense, we had Darrelle Revis in his peak. So Rex would put him on one side of the field and everybody else on the other. Hey, you got him, Reeve. Play like things like that. So, and we took Mark Sanchez, who was a marketable quarterback, not a great quarterback. He really wasn't. But we surrounded him with these other ingredients. We led the league in rushing. We had one of the top three defenses, and I had one of the top three or four special teams units. So all of a sudden, we could compete every week. We were the team you didn't want to play, and we ended up in the championship games with Mark. So we went against Peyton Manning and Roethlisberger from Pittsburgh, and so they beat us, but they were great games, and we got in there. And as I sometimes frequently remind the Jets, they haven't been to the playoffs since I left. So I'm not
Well,
afraid to tell
and
you
that
that.
would be the barometer, the measuring stick for good coaches, where and people always talked about, and this dynamic comes into play when you're talking about Sean Payton, who you've been with
Yeah,
for many years, and obviously he has great respect for you, and vice versa. But and you would say, well, did Drew Brees make Peyton, or did Peyton make Drew Brees? Just like they said this about Belichick and Brady, and yet, good coaching is
it's always
benchmarked by the idea that you can take players like you had with the Jets, plug in some pieces here and there, and have the whole be much better than the sum of its parts.
correct. I mean,
Yeah,
it's always a combination of those guys. I mean, with obviously Marino and Shula, you had two guys
sure,
that were really at the very top. I mean, I'm a big giant Dan Marino fan. I know when I hear all the debates about the great quarterbacks, and Dan's name's not there, because he didn't win the Super Bowl, and I understand that's real. I got that, but believe me, and I was part of it. Dan is the least person responsible for
yes, yes,
that gap in the sentence, because Dan was really a good player. I mean, he was good and he worked hard. He did it. He played banged up. He was tough. I mean, I have so much respect for him. He did a great job, and so you see that. Drew was the hardest working practice player I'd ever seen in my career. I mean, it was unbelievable the way he worked. So things like that. You saw those kind of guys and what they meant to your football team, and it's usually a combination of having that type of thing. And Tom Brady, of course, when he first took over, I was there in his first game with the Jets. We went up after 9/11. We played New England. Bledsoe had been their quarterback.
right,
He rolled out of the pocket, and our linebacker Mo Lewis hit him so doggone hard it nearly killed him. And next thing you know, they bring in this skinny kid from Michigan,
right,
and we won the game. We beat them that day. But I'm thinking, who's this guy? This guy's pretty good. Well, next thing you know, he wins a Super Bowl. Well, they had a great defense, but then the next year they got a little better on offense. Then they get a little better on offense. So next thing you know, they got Wes Welker and they got Randy Moss and da 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 da, and then they become the great franchise that they were. And Tom Brady was certainly did such a great job. But it's usually a combination of having a pretty doggone good coach that understands how to put it all together. I mean, Andy Reid to me is the quintessential example right now. The guy that's done it, because they were pretty good at Philadelphia when
yes.
he was there. Then he goes to Kansas City and they're off the charts. So he knows how to do it. He's a very very good coach.
Unbelievable results, over a long period of time,
Yeah.
which, as we say, would be the consideration for some of these Hall of Fame coaches you work with. How would you characterize Sean Payton? What makes him so successful at what he does?
He's a very good teacher on offense. A very good teacher of offense. I think his game day stuff sometimes is I think sometimes it's mediocre.
Suspect. Yeah, he seems so involved though,
I
too. I
don't
mean,
think it's,
all
but
the
he's
details.
extremely involved. I have
Yeah.
to give him credit. He studies hard. He works hard. He pushes hard at it. He absolutely does. He works very hard at it. Sometimes it's a little frustrating, because he's a little tough to deal with on game day. But
Okay.
but he teaches that offense exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. Now I think it's not an easy offense to learn because it's so verbal. I mean, there's. I mean, I would look at the computer and watch. On Tuesdays, I would put on the offense and defense, and I'd sit there and watch them. And on the top of the play, it's got the thing in italics. It's got written up there what the play is, and the down and distance, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm looking up there one time. It's a play, and I said it's kind of a loss. So I start to read it. So I'm reading it, and I'm reading it. I said, this is a play. And I counted it 19 words. 19 where? I told the offensive coaches the preamble to the Constitution wasn't this long. How the hell is anybody supposed to know this? So,
That's
but he likes that because he wants to make sure everybody he fits them all in. Now, to his credit, of course he's been doing this a million years, though he's got it. Now, for some of the guys, it's not easy. Russell Wilson had a tough time with it. No disrespect to him, he had a tough time with it. Bo Nix seems to be very good at it. He's picked it up, and I think he's handled it very well. But you could see how it got better and better and better as the season progressed. But what Sean does, there's an exactness in his teaching, and I think he's very good at that. I think he's very good at it. And even there are times when I'm not too happy with him, some things he does, but he's really good at that. He knows that. Now, the better, more experienced guy that he's got controlling that offense, the Drew Brees, and hopefully now moving to the Bo Nix, then that's where they'll go. Without that, they won't go anywhere. They'll just be mediocre. I
yeah.
don't think he's a great running game coach. I just don't. But that pass part, he knows it. He knows it very well, very well.
Showed a lot of promise. All right, a couple of minutes left here with Mike Westhoff here on Conversations. I want to get a couple of fast impressions here about things that you experienced and people that you admired. Now, among kick returners, I was weaned kind of when I got interested in the NFL on Travis Williams, Green Bay Packers. Nolan the Flea Smith was great with the Chiefs. There were many when Bullet Bob Hayes was back there for the Cowboys. I always got excited. We were fortunate here on the college level to have tremendous return men with the University of Miami for a long period of time. So that was always a very exciting play. And of course, you mentioned that you could stop Deion Sanders from crossing the street with certain schemes. But
I used to love that. I used to love to do that.
who stood out to you? I mean, among your favorites of all time?
Dion was the best.
Okay.
He was the. I know a lot of people would maybe talk about up in Chicago, Devin Hester.
Yes.
I just thought Dion was so explosive. I know one thing, man, 'cause I know him pretty well, and I used to talk to him. And I said I love teasing him, and I said, if you had played me every week, I said, instead of being this famous guy you are, you'd be a greeter at Walmart. I think I would have killed you every week. But remember, we had Reggie Roby, and Reggie Roby would be hitting the ball against him out of the stadium and coming down right on the sideline. And Dion used to get so mad. He never gained anything against me. He never did. But I'll give Reggie the credit for that. But
Yeah.
Dion was incredible. I think he was just off the charts of the things he did. But now for me, what I've had, I loved O.J. McDuffie at Miami. O.J. was a special. Don't forget, O.J. McDuffie led the NFL in receptions one year.
Yeah.
Don't forget about that. He's a pretty good football player.
Excellent.
I loved him. I went to Penn State, worked him out. And he did a great job for me. So, he was really special there. And then as a kickoff returner, I'd have to go when I was up in New York with Leon Washington.
Okay.
Leon led the league and did a great job for me and was just a great, great guy and did a heck of a job. So, you see a lot of different guys that do things different ways. But if I had to just pick one, it's got to be, it would be Dion. But those guys that played for me, come on, I love them.
All time, you need one guy to make a kick. Who you trotting out there?
Lindo Mari.
Wow. Okay. I mean,
Me. I'll go with somebody that played for me. It's
Okay.
pretty tough to not look at Vinatieri or Tucker from Baltimore. Yeah, Tucker's got himself. He's had some issues lately. You got to straighten that out. But God bless.
Not very flattering.
No, it's not. He's a good football player.
Yeah.
But he's really good.
Did that story shock you?
Me,
Do you know him a little bit? Because everything he represents seems to.
I do not know him. I've always had the greatest respect for him.
Yeah.
I've said hello, and I think everything he does is really been first class. He's really good. But for me, the guys that I know that I've had, Lindo Mari, when I had him, come on, he can make anything. He was really good.
Yeah, he was great.
Pro Bowl, and he was a good player. And he could kick off. That onside kick he hit before they changed the rule and made it tough to do it. Come on, nobody. When he hit the right kick, we got it every time.
Yeah, he was great at that.
He was really good. Good. So I like sometimes taking the guys that I had. So I'm going to go with Lindo.
All right. And, I mean, did you have to concern yourself a lot? You mentioned these long snappers now are getting it perfectly every time, but that wasn't always the case. And you
No.
had many guys. There's a guy, I guess he has like 4 Super Bowl rings. Dale Hellestray,
Right.
who was in the league forever as a
Oh,
long
some of the guys
snapper.
did it forever. I had a big kid up at the Jets, James Dirth. I'd take him. He was my favorite. Great big guy. Played actually he was a quarterback at Tarleton State University in Texas. And he was a big guy. He's 6'3", about 280, all muscle, strong, tough as nails. I just loved him. I take those kind of guys. But they have it's changed so much. It's just the position has changed. It was, back in the day when you could
He
line
used
up
to
guys
fight
on.
off 2 guys, right? I mean, from that
Oh,
position.
it was tough as nails.
Yeah.
I mean, those poor guys. God bless it. Now it's totally changed. Totally changed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, and I would imagine, although did you have half a heart attack when Reggie Roby was dropping the ball from up here like he was Pete Sampras serving a tennis ball?
I
So
mean,
you're thinking, what?
I'm a Reggie fan. I like Reggie. Reggie, I had a good relationship with him. I liked the way he worked. I used to just be. I enjoyed being around Reggie. Reggie could do. He'd stay after practice and hit a million. You couldn't kick enough for him. He
No,
just loved it, and he could blast it. So I drafted Ron Stark, so he's a guy I had a lot of faith in. And then Tom Morstead was great for me. But if I had to pick one, if I just had to pick one, it would be Reggie. Reggie and Tom. They were the guys.
all right, outstanding stuff. And you're
One
playing
more guy. Give you one
yeah,
more. Best guy ever to play special teams, Steve Tasker.
Tasker, and is he not in
Absolutely,
the Hall of Fame as a
absolutely
result?
should be in the Hall of Fame.
He's not in. I thought he.
No, no.
Okay.
And right next to him going in, the Miami Dolphins, please, Richmond Webb.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely
He's
belongs.
got to go. I Richmond Webb, what he did. You talk about a football player. That guy was a player. I mean, he's going against Bruce Smith all by himself, protecting Dan Marino. Richmond Webb's got to go in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and an outstanding human being too.
That's
Really, really
great.
good.
You've been around him. You know what he's like.
No,
Come
no,
on.
just a sweetheart of a guy. Michael, so you're going to lean towards Philadelphia in this game, or you're saying don't even bother going against Mahomes?
Well, no, I think it's going to be a very good game, and I think Philadelphia can make it a good game. If Saquon Barkley can get going and keep Mahomes on the bench, look out. And,
All
and
right.
Barkley's the guy that can do it because that offensive line can block and they can run and they're patient. Now they got to mix things up. I think their quarterback's playing very good. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. I just at the end of the day, how do you stop that doggone guy? I don't know. I
Certainly
don't know.
won't be easy. Yeah, and it's a great ending to his story where here he was, almost like Chuck Mersine, cast aside by the New York Giants, and ends up being a hero for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you ask yourself, how does Joe Shane sleep at night after signing Daniel Jones to the contract and cost him the money he might have had to pay or would have had to pay Saquon? So great story from many different angles. A pleasure, Michael. Looking great, man. Glad you're feeling well.
I'm doing
Always
fine.
great
Thank you.
talking football with you. We could go on all day. It's always a
No,
pleasure.
I love it. You bring up things I haven't. That's me. No, I'm a big fan. So no, I've been a fan of yours. When I first met you and you
Yeah,
got in with that outfit you used to work with
yeah.
Hank and Jim Manish. Come on, you
Oh,
guys were the
true.
best. You were the All Star team. You were
That's
the All
Sonny
Star.
Hirsch, Rick Weaver.
Oh,
All the
you guys were good. That whole group was Miami
imagine
was special because that whole group was as good as it gets.
we had 6 guys in the sports department at a local radio station, which now you'd be lucky to have 6 guys in the whole complex if they had 7 stations. So it's really changed. Mike, we love you, man. Thanks so much for being a part of Conversations this week.
All right, thank you, thank you. Anytime, please, anytime.
All right, Mike Westhoff, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of fun. Giving a shot, Toby, to our Philadelphia Eagles, maybe to do something in this game. I don't know where you stand on this, Toby, because yeah, have you weighed in on the Super Bowl and any of the shows yet?
No, not yet. I've kind of been, I don't know, just absent with this Super Bowl. It's been kind of a
Yeah,
weird one.
you're
I
waiting
haven't
for
really.
the catchers to report. I know you.
That's what I'm waiting for. Yeah, but
You
this has been like I don't know. I just have not really liked this Super Bowl matchup. Not really interested in it very much. But I hope the Eagles win. That's bottom line for me.
Yeah, I've talked myself into it. Just one quick thing here, a note, because I was amazed by the fact that the Luka Doncic trade for Anthony Davis. How was that kept such a secret? There was more information out there and more speculation about the worst basketball trade in history, certainly recent history, when Joe Biden traded a washed-up Brittany Griner for the Merchant of Death. We knew more about that, Toby, than we did about Luka going to the Los Angeles Lakers. But I don't know
Yeah.
how. It's baffling to me how they kept that thing a secret to the degree that they did, where allegedly nobody knew about it. And then you were looking at Jason Kidd, and he's finding out from this Nico Harrison that the guy just had a weak moment and said, "Hey, I'm going to give Luka Doncic away." Which not that Anthony Davis is a slouch, but you're talking about a guy 25 years old, and Kidd looked like the guy when Mike Tyson was on the couch. I don't know if you ever saw this interview with Barbara Walters, where he was being crucified by Robin Givens and her mother Ruth Roper, and it looked like they had injected and maybe even had an IV drip of Dilaudid that Tyson was on, because he was catatonic, and that was the same way Jason Kidd looked when this guy Harrison was explaining how the hell he made this trade. So that was a wild aspect, and kind of took the spotlight off the Super Bowl on the week leading up to the game. So, enjoyed it again today, Toby. Thanks so much for putting things together, and
Of
we
course.
love being with you guys on Bleacher Brothers. You can catch our show in the morning now. It's on the YouTube channel and a couple of the other Bleacher Brothers platforms. So that goes from 8 to 9. And we're very happy about that development as well, and many other exciting things happening. So thanks so much for tuning in. For Toby and Mike Westhoff, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you on the next edition of Conversations.